Picture this, Friday 12 past noon at Bricker & Sons Auto down in Portland. A gray Whitmore W8 limped into our greasy lot, engine coughing when it should have purred. Clare Whitmore stepped out, high heels and a spotless white suit meeting our filthy garage floor. Marcus, our boss, grinned and shoved me forward. My hands were pitch black from transmission grease. Marcus actually flicked his dirty rag near her lapel. "He only knows how to change fluids, ma'am." The whole garage roared. Clare clenched her fist in silence. I just kept my head down. But then I looked past her at that coughing engine, and everything shifted. I actually designed that exact engine. Clare did not even flinch at their jokes. She dropped her purse, wiped the grease off her lapel, and let her cold voice cut through the entire auto shop. "I need a diagnostic right now." Marcus straightened up, smelling easy cash. He slapped my shoulder, leaving a black grease print. "Caldwell, go wash the lady's luxury car. Make it shine. Don't scratch anything worth more than your cheap little apartment." The other guys snickered loudly. I just grabbed a bucket without a word and walked away. I have swallowed worse insults in this shop. Honestly, I have heard worse this week. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and popped the hood himself, whistling low and dramatic. That empty, showy whistle people use when they want you to think they actually know something. "Main fuel pump is shot, definitely the pump. Seen it 100 times on these European imports. Pressure regulator likely went out with it." He tapped his wrench confidently against the manifold. "You're looking at $8,000, ma'am. Maybe 9. Sourcing replacement parts for a Whitmore is a complete nightmare. We'd have to ship them from Munich." Clare did not say a word. She did not bother telling him her car did not even use German parts. She did not mention that pump had a 0 failure rate because the engineer who designed it, me personally, hand-picked the supplier back in 2017. She just let Marcus keep on talking. "You and I both know how this goes. Loud, arrogant men expose their ignorance in under 90 seconds. Her eyes drifted over to my wash bay, where I was wiping down the roof. I had completely stopped moving. I was just listening closely to that uneven idle. I finally spoke up, keeping my eyes down, sounding almost apologetic about it. "It isn't the pump. That pump is running perfectly clean. Hear it on the second beat? That tiny stutter is the secondary EGR valve. Femory fault, not mechanical. You'd waste $8,000 chasing air." Marcus turned bright red. "Did I ask you, Caldwell?" "No, sir, sorry." But Clare had already turned. Really turning toward me for the first time, staring right at my grease-stained hands. Calluses, sure, cracked knuckles from freezing mornings, but my fingertips were still precise and clean. My nails were neatly trimmed close. The hands of a real engineer, not just some lifelong grease monkey. She filed that little detail away like she did everything else, quietly and completely. Right in the exact place where she kept the names of suppliers who crossed her family. I felt her staring. But I never raised my eyes. Through the dirty garage window, I spotted my 6-year-old daughter, Lily, clutching her lunchbox and waiting safely on the sidewalk. She waved. I gave her back. The smallest, quietest nod a father can give without anyone else in the room noticing. Marcus slammed the hood shut. $8,000, have her ready by Monday. Picture this. Clare stared down our grease-stained mechanic. "I will consider it, ma'am." "Look, with luxury cars you do not trust some amateur opinion," Marcus sneered. "My guys have certifications." His smug smile slipped slightly. "Absolutely." She headed toward the service bay. The real expert just kept polishing. She stepped so close her expensive perfume overwhelmed him. It smelled like cold rain on stone. "What did you say the problem was?" "Secondary EGR, ma'am. The fix is just reflashing the ECU 40 minutes. Maybe $60 for diagnostic time if the dealer is honest." She studied his rough neck. She noticed his faint scar, the kind earned bleeding over a sharp workbench corner. They looked down on a simple mechanic. Yet his shoulders stayed proudly and confidently squared. "What is your name?" "Ethan what?" He finally looked up at her. "Just Caldwell." She gave him a slow nod. The exact look you give when you realize real talent is standing right before you. She turned and left without giving that arrogant boss a single dime. The door chimed. Marcus stared blankly, like that wealthy client had just stripped him of his pride. 30 seconds passed before that old shop bell chimed a second time. Little Lily slipped inside, tiny for a 6-year-old, her hair like pale honey. Her tiny sneakers were heavily scuffed from running on the concrete she should avoid. They told her to wait outside, but hugging the real hero of this shop mattered more. Rushing straight toward the bay, she bumped right into Claire near her expensive luxury car. "Oh, I am sorry, ma'am. Really sorry," Lily whispered, ducking her little head. Then she glanced up, her eyes wide with wonder. Her face lit up with the kind of pure recognition only a child truly trusts. "Your car is pretty. It looks just like the one Daddy drew in his notebook." Claire froze for a second. His notebook? Meanwhile, Marcus marched across the concrete floor. "Hey, kid, you do not belong in here. Get out before something crushes you." He reached for her tiny wrist but never made it. The quiet mechanic blocked him. The oil rag hit the dirt. His voice, when it came, was dead quiet. "You know that exact tone. Do not touch my daughter." The whole room froze solid. Even the compressor hiss quieted down. Marcus just stood there, his mouth hanging wide open. That smug junior mechanic took a step back, suddenly terrified of the quiet man. Even the dusty workbench radio, playing a sad country song about some long road home, seemed to drop its volume. The quiet genius put one grease-stained hand gently on his little girl's head. "Go to the bench, sweetheart. Eat your lunch. I will be there in 1 minute." Lily obeyed instantly, knowing she could always trust the quiet man protecting her. The boss tried laughing, but it sounded weak. "Take it easy, Caldwell. I would not hurt her." "Man, you are touchy." Ethan said nothing, simply grabbing his rag and returning to the engine. He went right back to scrubbing a perfectly clean fender. Claire just stood there, watching everything. She noticed how his jaw stayed clamped tight until his loudmouth boss finally walked away. She watched this unrecognized genius look over at Lily, unwrapping a cheap peanut butter sandwich. His face held zero ego. It was something much deeper than any cheap sense of pride. The tired, heavy look of a dismissed expert who only had his little girl left to protect. Claire walked over to the old wooden bench, crouching down to meet the little girl's eyes. Let's face it, her expensive white suit touched the dirty floor and she did not even care. "Hi, you said your daddy drew a car just like mine?" Chewing her sandwich, Lily nodded. She swallowed hard, mentioning that old black book with the worn leather cover. "He keeps it in his nightstand," she said, "from his days tuning real race cars. Real racing machines, the kind they shipped all the way to France." Lily scrunched up her face, searching for the name, Lele Monday. Claire felt a sudden chill in her gut. Lily beamed. "You know how real builders are. He stays quiet, but late at night sometimes. He sketches his true genius in that journal, keeping his real worth hidden away." Across the dirty shop, Ethan quietly sweated over a fender he had polished perfectly. His rough hands worked in loops, feeling the wealthy client staring from 20 feet back. Claire stood up, glancing at the overlooked mechanic in the corner, then at Lily. "Thanks for sharing that, sweetie." "You are very welcome, Miss Lady." Claire ignored the grease-stained master doing the heavy lifting as she walked out. Before leaving, the wealthy client dropped her card face down on the counter. Marcus saw no name, just a single scrawled line. "I know what your hands built." That night, the corporate executive could not sleep. She sat high up in her sterile glass office, looking down at the city lights beneath her massive corporate tower. She dug through every corporate file her high-security clearance allowed. Engineering rosters, old subcontractors, secrecy agreements, and decade-old patent papers. Buyout documents from the exact year they swallowed up Halberd Motorsport, that small racing shop her father absorbed into their massive empire back in 2020. Let us check the records. Ethan Caldwell was not in any corporate payroll files. Missing from every single consulting contract her father signed before he passed away. The master builder's name was erased. Right inside the corporate empire, his grease-stained hands had built from scratch. At 1:23 in the morning, she grabbed her phone, dialing the only guy left who would answer for the boss's daughter. Robert Pike, the veteran head powertrain engineer over at Halberd. He packed up 4 years ago for a cabin in Bend, living with 3 dogs and an old W-Series. Just rusting under a heavy tarp out back. The last living engineer who knew which blue-collar geniuses were scrubbed from that engine. He answered on the 4th ring. "Claire, Robert, tell me about Ethan Caldwell." The line went so dead quiet she thought the connection was lost. "You should stop looking." "Robert, I cannot. Some guys just do not want to be found. Leave the working man buried for his peace and yours. Robert, please." "I love you, kid. So did your old man. Good night." He hung up. She sat frozen in her expensive chair, clutching her phone in the dark. Nobody had called her kid since the day her whistleblower father passed away. Meanwhile, in a cheap flat over the garage, the quiet master wrapped a blanket around his girl and kissed her head. Captain the Bear was wedged right under her little arm. A cheap plastic nightlight cast a warm yellow glow across the bedroom wall. He lingered in the doorway, quietly watching her breathe easy for a long minute. Then he collapsed onto his worn mattress and pulled open that little bedside drawer. That beaten-up leather journal sat right where he had always kept it. He flipped to page 1, revealing a hand-drawn diagram of the W8 engine block. Complex engineering specs lined the margins in his precise blue-collar handwriting, stamped with dark ink down below. Halberd Motorsport 2019, he snapped it shut. True skill needs no fancy corporate title. He sat in the dark, listening to Lily breathe. I shoved my blueprints deep into the drawer and killed the light. But then Claire marched right back into my dirty auto shop. No corporate armor today, just jeans, a leather jacket, and hair tied back. My loudmouth boss choked on his coffee. "Back so soon, lady?" She blew past him like he was invisible. "Ethan," she called. I stopped working. My scarred hands stopped. "Come to Whitmore Tower," she begged, "just one single hour." My boss barked a harsh fake laugh, trying to mock the very idea. "You have to be kidding," the fool sneered. "He is just a mechanic with a kid." Claire ignored his disrespect completely. "I will have him back by lunch." I just stood there and stared, picturing my little girl sitting in her classroom. I thought of my hidden designs, hearing the rough, flawed idle of the W8 nearby. I wiped the grease away. Fine, soon I was 42 floors above Portland. The elevator opened to a secret floor the average paper pushers never see. Pristine walls, zero dirt, just one high-tech security door at the end of a sterile hallway. Claire pressed her hand to the scanner, and the heavy door hissed open. Under the cold, arrogant spotlight sat the mighty W12 prototype. Matte black, aggressively low, built to dominate, a dangerous machine engineered for one single purpose. Ignoring the real world entirely, 7 overpaid engineers hovered around it in spotless white coats. They spun around, then totally froze when they saw Claire had brought me inside. "This is Ethan," Claire announced. "He is here to listen." Claire, a wealthy corporate suit in the back, stepped forward. Expensive haircut, wearing a suit sharp enough to kill, Damien, the arrogant chief operating officer. He judged me like a rich snob staring at fresh mud on his floor. "Tell me you're joking." "I'm not. Let's watch the disrespect here. You brought a grease monkey inside right before launch? Are you completely insane?" He turned toward me with a condescending, mocking smirk. "Know anything about software diagnostics, pal?" I did not even give him an answer. I walked right past the rich suits, the useless experts and their fancy diagnostic toys. I placed my rough working hand flat down onto the sleek hood. Like an honest doctor feeling a heartbeat, I stood there in complete silence for a solid minute. I listened. The massive engine was dead quiet, but I felt for its hidden pulse anyway. Like I was listening to an old friend I had built from scratch. "Push it to 8,000 on the dyno," I ordered softly. "Let me hear that second run." "Ignore the first. The first pass is always a lie. The heat has not peaked yet." The pampered lead tech glanced at Claire. She gave a firm nod. They locked the vehicle down. We stepped inside the control booth and fired it up. The motor climbed flawlessly to 7,000. At 7,800 RPM, it choked, a sick, fragile rattle like a tired laborer losing his breath on steps he climbed 1,000 times. The fancy engineer flinched. That terrifying failure had been haunting his nightmares for 6 straight weeks. They killed the power. I was already walking back to Claire. "This is not a hardware failure," I said. "Check line 4217. You have a sign error in the camshaft temperature reading. It shows positive when it should be negative above 7,800. The arrogant machine thinks the motor is safe while it literally burns. So it pushes harder. We both know that is why your dyno destroys engines. You suits are not testing an engine. You are testing how long it lies to itself before dying." The suits froze. A junior tech stared at his screen, glanced at the boss, then looked down. The lead guy, Hollis, 41 years old, boasting 3 shiny patents on paper. The father of 2 opened his mouth, then just snapped it shut. He built his career on outsmarting everyone. But you and I know what happens when real talent finally speaks up. Over in the corner, Damon went pale as printer paper. He backed a half step away from that $1 million engine, totally unaware his feet had moved. Claire spoke quietly. "Pull up the source code." They instantly obeyed. 15 minutes later, Hollis spun the screen around so the whole expensive room could see. Line 4217. A plus instead of a minus. Hollis choked up. "How did you catch that? 9 highly paid engineers missed this for 6 weeks. How could you just hear it?" The mechanic stayed quiet. Claire ignored the screen entirely. Her eyes locked directly onto Damon. He refused to meet her gaze. He just stared at the spotless floor between his expensive shoes, his clean hands starting to tremble slightly. Because exactly 3 long months ago, using a stolen login from a young tech who had already quit the firm, Damon himself slipped that single destructive character into the engine firmware. A tiny cowardly act of sabotage, small enough to look accidental but utterly devastating. If that engine shipped out, it would ruin Claire and force a boardroom takeover. He laid the trap specifically for that exact moment. "Stick with me here." He never expected a man in cheap boots to hear the flaw. Claire commanded them. Everyone out except Ethan. The expensive suits scrambled. Damon trailed out last, stumbling as if his weak legs forgot how to walk. The heavy door sealed shut with a soft hiss, keeping dirty corporate secrets locked away. Once alone, she finally faced the quiet mechanic in the beaten-up work boots. The overlooked mechanic still had oil under his fingernails. "Who are you, really?" Ethan studied the massive engine before answering. "I designed that W8 you brought to Bricker's lot. The first 3 powertrain versions, 8 hours a day, 4 hard years over at Halbert Motorsport. I was your dad's lead engineer before he sold Halbert to your company. My name is on those patents." Claire asked what happened. "Lost my wife 3 years ago. Some guy fell asleep driving and hit her out on Interstate 5. I was at Le Mans running tire tests. I was not even there. I did not even hear the phone ringing until morning." He kept his weathered eyes on the motor. "Lily was 3. I walked away completely. Told the lawyers to erase my name. Took a shop job 10 minutes from her school. I promised my little girl I would never pick a fancy machine over her again." Claire sat in stunned silence. That night, she drove to a place she should not have found, climbing the cramped stairs above Bricker's shop. She knocked. Little Lily answered with peanut butter on her chin and a crayon behind her ear. "You are that white coat lady from yesterday." Claire smiled. "I am." The kid just grabbed her hand, plain as day, and pulled her inside. "Look what I made today." She proudly held up a piece of colored construction paper. A blue-collar mechanic, a tiny kid, and a lady with dark hair. 3 little stick figures together. Claire sat down on the faded rug, completely lost for words for a long while. She stared at the messy drawing, then back at the sweet kid who made it. Lily happily climbed into her lap. "You see, real skill is about putting things back together." I watched Claire rest one careful hand against her back. I just stood in the kitchen doorway, holding a forgotten dish towel. For the first time in 3 long years, I heard 3 people breathing in this house, not just 2. You know the type. Damon Holt strutted into our greasy shop at 7:15. He didn't even look at me. Just stared down Marcus, who was opening the register. "Mr. Bricker, I need a quick word in your back office, behind closed doors." Damon dropped a thick envelope on the desk. He never said what was inside. He didn't have to. 50,000 cash to buy me out. Tonight, Ethan Caldwell is permanently out of this shop. No reference letter, no severance pay. Throw him to the curb with whatever he can carry. We are clear. Marcus didn't even bother counting the cash. He just nodded. My boss was 3 months behind on his mortgage and hadn't slept since November. For once, Marcus probably thought the universe was actually starting to remember his name. At 10 minutes to 8, I finally walked into the bay. Marcus was waiting near the grease pits. My old toolbox already sitting outside the door. He fired me loud, right in front of the crew. "Pack it up, Caldwell, you're done. I don't want you here by lunch. Don't bother begging for a final paycheck either. Think you're special just because some rich woman in a fancy suit looked at you twice? Go find out." I just stood there, taking it in. Looking down at the beat-up red toolbox my dad handed me when I was 19. My teenage initials were still scratched into the bottom in my messy, faded handwriting. I grabbed the handle, looked Marcus dead in the eye, and smiled. "Thank you, Marcus. You honestly just set me free." I walked out to the lot, my toolbox in hand. You and I know that feeling of being underestimated. The guys just watched me leave in silence. Our youngest apprentice stared at the greasy floor, looking like he'd just failed an unannounced test. Back home, a strange official envelope was waiting on my kitchen counter. Lily had brought the mail in and stacked it neatly, just like she always did. Whitmore Group Legal. I tore it open without even sitting down. 3 weeks ago, very quietly. Clare Whitmore bought the defaulted loan on our auto garage before the bank could foreclose on Marcus. Marcus was 4 months behind on his debt, but he didn't know it yet. As of that closing date, Marcus was working for a holding company owned entirely by Whitmore Automotive. He was now working for the exact woman he'd once thrown a dirty rag at. And he'd just taken $50,000 from a suit about to get fired from her company. I was still staring at the deed when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Ethan. Claire sounded calm, but I could hear how thin and stretched she really was. I need you. Not for Geneva. The board meets Monday morning, and Damon's been lobbying them all weekend. He has the votes to fire me unless I bring something he can't possibly explain away. A heavy pause. I'm going to lose my father's engineering firm. I looked back at the papers. My eyes drifted to the photo pinned to the fridge. Lily and her late mother. Taken 2 summers before Sarah passed. What time on Monday, Nina? I'll be there at 8. I'll bring Robert too. There was a long, heavy silence. He won't show up for me. I told her he'd show up for me. Monday morning, the fancy boardroom held 11 directors. 2 attorneys, 1 stenographer, and an expensive coffee service that nobody in the room touched. That massive, long oak table was actually a wedding gift to Claire's father, given 41 years ago. Just like me, her name wasn't written on it anywhere. The founder's initials were hidden under the main chair. Only Claire ever knew to look. Damon Holt stood there in his pristine charcoal suit, reading from a rehearsed corporate script. His voice was dead calm, his soft, clean hands never shook. The guy probably practiced this entire corporate speech in the mirror, adjusting his perfect lighting at 5 in the morning to look just right. For the record, last Tuesday, our chief executive let in an unvetted mechanic with no background check. No non-disclosure agreement, no security clearance into the Geneva prototype room. She even let him physically touch our W12 engine. A direct violation of Section 11 of our Executive Responsibility Charter. I am calling for an immediate vote of no confidence in Clare Whitmore as Chief Executive Officer of the Whitmore Automotive Group. 3 empty suits nodded, 2 stared down at the mahogany, the rest waited. Halworth, the 80-year-old chairman and former judge, sat at the end, hands folded, his face completely unreadable. He waited for Claire to show up 40 seconds longer than anyone found comfortable. I knew the old man was already counting down those seconds. The heavy door swung open. Claire stepped inside. She was not alone. I walked right behind her, wearing a cheap, plain black suit. I ditched the tie, left my red toolbox home, and gripped a leather portfolio. Behind me walked our secret weapon, Robert Pike, older, white-bearded, with incredibly sharp eyes. Damon flashed this arrogant smirk, but it did not reach his panicked eyes. Ah, our dirty mechanic, what is he doing here, Claire? Reading poetry to the board? I did not even look at him. I just dropped my folder, sliding it toward the chairman. Pike stepped right to the front, waiting until every empty suit was staring at him. At 63, he had not faced a corporate board in over 5 years. Yet he stood exactly like he used to in the pouring rain at Spa-Francorchamps. My name is Robert Pike. I was Chief Powertrain Engineer at Halbert Motorsport from 2012 to 2020. I retired when you bought Halbert. The man beside Miss Whitmore is my colleague, Ethan Caldwell. He personally built 70% of the active patents running your W series, including the exact tech that just secured your massive record earnings last quarter. Pike let the silence hang. In 2020, after Mr. Caldwell left this cutthroat industry, someone in this very building refilled 3 of his stolen patents to hijack the royalties. The name on those fraudulent filings was simply E. Caldwell, but the money flowed to a shell account run by a senior officer here. He pocketed over $2 million in 4 years off Ethan's grueling work. Pike stared down the polished table. That officer is Damon Holt. The undeniable proof is in the folder sitting before your chairman. Damon panicked. He lunged for my folder, violently flipping the heavy edge of the table. Coffee spilled. My stolen patents drifted across the floor in a slow white wave. 2 security guards grabbed his expensive suit before he could reach the door. The coward did not shout, he just went completely rigid, which looked far worse. The chairman opened my folder, reading the undeniable truth in silence for 90 seconds. He had known Claire since childhood, even carrying her father's casket at the funeral. My original engine drawings dated and signed E. Caldwell, Halbert Motorsport 2019. Those fake 2020 filings, carrying those sloppy traced signatures. Solid forensic proof was attached. Server logs exposed line 4217. Sabotage sent from Damien's stolen login. Wire transfers, bank receipts, 4 years of corporate theft printed in clean black ink. The fancy chairman shut the folder, folding his soft, clean hands over it. He stared Damien down for one long, dead silent second. Like an old man eyeing a stray dog that just bit a kid. "Mr. Holt," the chairman muttered, "sit down." Damien sat. Well, the guards forced him down. Then the chairman faced the other suits. "I am officially moving to strip Damien Holt of his role as Chief Operating Officer at Whitmore Automotive Group, effective immediately. I also move we hand this entire mess over to the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Oregon, offering full backing from our legal team." 11 clean, soft hands shot up. The vote passed in exactly 6 minutes. Nobody cheered. We both know how cowards act. Not one suit looked up as Damien was dragged out. Those rich directors packed up their expensive briefcases, shuffling past Claire one by one. And 3 of them, the same suits who were nodding along just hours before, stopped by the heavy doors, giving her the tiniest, most fake professional bow imaginable. She took every single one in silence. The boardroom finally cleared. Claire just stood at that giant window, palms flat on the glass, keeping her shoulders stiff. When she finally turned around, the tears were plain to see. She didn't hide them. She didn't run to me either. Honestly, she didn't even need to. Across the room, I gave her the quietest nod a working man could manage without those suits noticing. The same nod I gave my little girl through our grimy, grease-stained garage window. "I didn't fix this for you. I fixed it because the work demanded it." She heard that silent truth anyway. Later, I signed the engineering contracts and patent papers I never begged for, but definitely earned. Claire drove to Eastside Elementary, waiting in the pickup line inside a borrowed car. A beat-up Subaru she made her assistant find, knowing her fancy W8 would have embarrassed a humble 6-year-old. Lily walked out the doors, her heavy backpack sliding off her shoulder. My kid stopped, seeing exactly who was sitting in the driver's seat. She didn't even look shocked. She hopped right in, buckling up securely just like I taught her to. "Hey, Miss Claire." "Hey, Lily." They drove off. Halfway back, Lily reached over, resting her tiny hand on Claire's wrist near the shifter. "Are you going to stay for dinner with my dad?" Claire just smiled warmly. A genuine, real smile, probably her first all year. "If your dad invites me, I will stay." Simple pasta, cheap garlic bread from a bag, and some grocery store wine Claire grabbed on the drive. 3 modest plates resting on a worn table that usually only ever saw 2. Lily inhaled her food, babbling about a frog in the schoolyard and a clumsy kid named Tobias, who couldn't tie his shoelaces, and how her teacher claimed the moon was actually a chunk of the earth that broke away. Lily wasn't completely sold on that wild theory. Then, right mid-sentence, while talking about a butterfly, my poor kid fell asleep sitting straight up. We both know that heavy silence. Claire and I ate quietly while a dog barked outside. The rusty radiator clicked. That cheap kitchen bulb buzzed softly above the worn table. My kid's crayon sketch, 3 wobbly stick figures under a yellow sun, hung crookedly, its rough edges already peeling off our wall. "Why did you leave Halbert?" Claire asked. "Seriously, why bury your true talent?" I just sat there, my grease-stained hands turning my fork over. "Because Sarah called me twice the night she passed away." I was tuning engines in a French pit lane, radio in my ear. I ignored her. Her second call hit voicemail. I only listened after her funeral was over. She just said, "The rain is bad, I love you, call me back." My voice remained flat. I had never told another soul that story. I swore if I survived that year, I would never choose cold machinery over the family sleeping in my home. I kept that promise. I am still keeping it today. Claire set her wine glass down slowly, for a moment pure silence. She spent all afternoon pretending the fancy corporate boardroom had not broken her. But now, sitting at my cheap kitchen table above the noisy shop, her hands finally shook for the first time. My dad died 2 floors above where our board met today, she whispered. Massive coronary. I was 28, out in Singapore closing a business deal he never even asked for. I was trying to prove something to him that I should have let go of years ago. I took a red-eye home. I inherited a corporate empire, a corner office, a chair with his initials, and absolutely no one to talk to when I felt completely drained. She stared hard at her hands. I'm exhausted most days. Picture us sitting with that heavy truth in total silence. You bought my repair shop, I asked her later, before any of this? Yes, she took a long time to think before finally answering me. Because that owner insulted your little girl, and I had enough cash to ensure no guy on that lot could ever threaten her again. I really wasn't planning to tell you. I wasn't planning anything. I just couldn't drive past that garage, knowing I could help, and chose not to. I looked right at her across the table. I just nodded once. I did not say thank you out loud. My gratitude was packed inside that single nod, how I handle most deep feelings. My daughter Lily had fallen asleep sideways, mouth open, clutching her old brown bear named Captain. I stood up and lifted her carefully, just like I have done every night for 3 years, carrying her down the narrow hallway. When I came back, Claire was staring out the window. A bright moon was hanging low over the city rooftops outside. It lit up one half of her face, leaving the rest completely in shadow. I stepped toward her but stopped just 1 pace away. She didn't even turn around. I don't need you to come any closer right now. I just need to know for sure, are you going to stay? Yes, that was the entire conversation. No kiss, no reaching out. Just breathing, a man and a woman standing apart in a cramped kitchen above a greasy shop while my little girl slept safely nearby. Out there the city rushed by. Inside, for 1 heavy minute we stood frozen. 6 weeks later in Geneva, the Whitmore W12 engine prototype rolled on stage under blinding lights, the sound system thumping loud. 2,000 automotive journalists, dealers, and bitter competitors all gasped in disbelief. Clare Whitmore stood tall. At the podium in deep navy, she let the silence build before leaning into the microphone. This engineering project, she announced, was saved by a man we almost completely ignored. A guy sweating in a repair shop 12 miles away from this massive company's headquarters, while 3 of his mechanical patents paid for another man's mansion. A man, she said, polishing someone else's car, feeding his daughter on $22 an hour. Imagine how that felt. Listen closely. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan Caldwell, Director of Powertrain Engineering. He stepped onto the stage. The former grease monkey wore a black suit that fit like he was actually born for this. Those blinding cameras did not faze him. This overlooked mechanic knew cameras well from his past life. His eyes scanned the 3rd row until he finally spotted her. Little Lily, navy dress, sitting high on Robert Pike's shoulders, waving both hands like a crew chief guiding a jet. Ethan just smiled. He did not wave back. He did not have to. She understood. The crowd cheered for 40 seconds straight. Claire just let it happen. Then she stepped back, letting the irreplaceable mechanic say just 1 sentence into the microphone. His only words all night. This car, he declared, was built by a whole dedicated team, not just him. I am grateful to join a team again. He stepped away. Those cameras just kept firing. Up front, a German auto editor was already drafting the headline. Come Tuesday morning, this story would spread across half of Europe. 3 weeks after Geneva, on the corner where that old fading Bricker and Sons auto sign hung. A fresh sign hung there now, clean white letters on dark blue, Caldwell and Lily Auto Care. Ethan kept his garage bay. He handed his old boss Marcus a fair payout, letting him walk away with some pride intact. It was less than Marcus deserved, but far more than he ever expected. The shop opened Saturdays at 9 a.m. Neighbors brought in their sedans, beat-up Ford trucks, and their kids' clunky first cars. The master mechanic charged fair rates, or sometimes absolutely nothing at all. Lily set up a lemonade stand by the bay doors, charging 50 cents a cup. On a busy weekend, she was easily the 2nd highest earner in the whole place. One Saturday afternoon in May, Claire rolled up at 5. She drove that battered Subaru the whole neighborhood recognized. Lily sprinted right out of the garage, with engine grease on her cheek and a juice box in hand. "Miss Clare!" Claire dropped straight to the sidewalk and caught her. The little girl fit against her shoulder like she absolutely belonged there. Over that small honey-colored head, Claire locked eyes with Ethan. The working-class father stood in the doorway, wiping his calloused hands on a blue shop rag. He just smiled at her. The same quiet smile he gave her through the dirty glass of a toxic shop she would never have to step foot in again. The day she first showed up wearing white and left without paying a single dime. Only this time that smile was just for her, and it was massive. Neither of them spoke. They did not have to. Lily just tugged Claire's hand. "Daddy made spaghetti. Are you staying?" "I am staying forever." Standing inside the bay, the quiet mechanic stayed silent, letting Claire answer. This working father knew that the most critical words in a little girl's. Claire kissed Lily's honey-colored crown, looking up at Ethan, the brilliant mechanic they had all underestimated. "Yes," she whispered to him, "forever. You and I know the type. Arrogant clients humiliating a brilliant, self-made mechanic on a Friday afternoon. They threw a dirty rag right at a genius they mistook for a nobody. They mocked a working-class father, while his little girl watched from the sidewalk. What they did not respect until the engine failed was that his real strength was not revenge. It was his family.